Gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you very much for participation. In this session, we are going to have a panel discussion on labor and innovation for empathy and motivation to improve accessibility. Yahoo, Demae-can, and Line are here, and we are offering services that are close to your life. And how we are tackling accessibility is going to be discussed by those who are working for that. I'd like to ask each one of you to introduce yourself. I'm Fukushima. I'll be MC. And I am an executive officer at the Line, and I am the head of Front-End Development Center. And in this Front-End Center, we are fully aware of accessibility. And I'd like to talk about how we tackle, and I'd like to be motivated more by this discussion. I'd like to ask each one of you to introduce yourself. Okay. I'm a markup engineer at the Line. My name is Tomita. As for accessibility TF, which was launched, and I'm disseminating information on accessibility internally. And in terms of accessibility TF, I have been developing guidelines and checklists, and there are guidelines published by W3C, but it's difficult to understand if you are not sure about accessibility, and developers and planners and designers should be able to understand that right away. That's why we changed the content. And also user interview is what we do to see what they understand by their different degree of disability and the medical conditions they experience. We can see the problems. And first of all, we had an interview of a total of 12 visually impaired people for the interview. And also, we are promoting accessibilities to enhance accessibility awareness. We are having a study session, and we conducted the first session with more than 150 participants, of which more than half of them used English-Korean translation services. That's all from me. Thank you. Nice to see you all. Nakano-san, please. I'm Nakano of Yahoo Japan. Nice to see you all. I am involved in UI guideline in the organization, and I am tackling accessibility improvement. In line with that, accessibility area is what we are expanding, and also digital agency is where I take part in for the past year. And also there is a Web Accessibility Infrastructure Committee, WAKE, working group. That is a platform I participate in. And I'd like to talk about what we do at Yahoo Japan. First of all, this is audible election service. There used to be federal and also prefectural election for visually impaired people. They have difficulty in getting information, and that is the service we can offer. And also in terms of a social issue, we take an action for nationwide election. We are setting up a site for that. And next, I'd like to talk about Yahoo Japan weather maps. Visibility verification is what we do. When you see weather map, you see codes and colors as information. Depending on color visibility perception, some of you may have difficulty in seeing that. And we had a verification with blind blindness people. And the third one is Z Holdings and Line had merged, and this is what we tackled for visibility verification. When we had a business integration, Yahoo's Japan and Line, the corporate color is green, and many of them are using green and red. Depending on color perception, it's difficult to see them in color, and that is what we verified. That's all from me. Thank you. Next, Shiraishi-san, please. Yes. I'm from Demae-can. My name is Taiki Shiraishi, and I'm a front-end engineer at Demae-can. And so I'd like to show this as a case study I'm involved in. At Demae-can, we are having a services website, and I'm developing a front-end website, and you can order a meal to that, and we are replacing it with Next.js and improving accessibility in the process. And the replacement, when we do that, markup and the JS eject portion should be more accessible for implementation. That's what I do. I have an opportunity to talk with those distinguished people, and this is exciting. Thank you very much. Now, we will start a panel discussion. First of all, motivation to start improving accessibility. That is what I'd like to talk about. You are leading to improve accessibility in your task, and as you do your job, in terms of improvement of accessibility, I'd like to ask you the motivation, maybe the reversed order of self-introduction. Shiraishi-san, please. Yes. As for the motivation, markup is one of the operations I do. We have to improve skills more, and the semantic and accessibility needs to be recognized more. And also, my colleagues had a better knowledge about accessibility, and I learned about that from them. And I noticed that. And at the Demae-can, life infrastructure involving a local community, which is our vision. And so targeting at a broader public people, not only the specific people, we are also having a retail for broader public people. So that is the services we'd like to offer. So I thought that I have to tackle accessibility with the knowledge I have and also the nature of Demae-can's operation. That is why I'm improving accessibility. So Demae-can as a whole, are you fully motivated to improve accessibility? Yes, designers and developers aware we have to do that. And what is the approach we should have is an issue we have at present. I see. Thank you very much. Nakano-san, please. Yes. There are 2 points I'd like to talk about. First of all, in the previous company where I worked before Yahoo Japan, it was a development company, website, web accessibility, segmentation was one deal. And I touched to see what was accessibility. That is the trigger when I started working on accessibility. And there was a task with the consideration of accessibility, and I transferred to Yahoo Japan. And at Yahoo Japan, UI, the visual portion, is where I was very careful about. But there are maybe other areas where we should give services to more people given accessibility consideration. And some people got together, and we had a small start and expanded the activity more. And how many people were there at the beginning? At the beginning, there was a small number of people, of 4 or 5 people. So those who had the motivation got together. Yes. At that time, accessibility plan, way area is one thing. We try to read it, and we can incorporate that into service where we were responsible for. So we started from a small area. I see. Thank you very much. What about Tomita-san? The motivation to start improving accessibility is that we started a website when I was a student at university, even before starting to work.
So unlike paper, the web page is interesting that the user can switch the page freely. Then also that interest is also converted into the accessibility. So accessibility is something we cannot avoid. So I have that kind of feeling, and through my work. But of course, since it is the work, so we always have a deadline, and we cannot develop something perfect. And also after joining that line, so in the beginning, as an organization, there is no big awareness of the accessibility. So I kept my interest as a kind of a personal interest. But I am participating a different kind of the study session, and also the social environment has changed, and also the legal requirements are also getting prepared. So then also organization realized that this is something that we have to pay attention. So you have your personal interest, and also you have a ownership to address that. So for you to do that, I think, is there any concrete case that someone who you know has accessibility issue, or through your experience you had something accessibility related issue? So I think this is common for engineer, and to improve the efficiency, engineers tend to use the shortcut, and then using escape to close the dialogue. But website, there is no such something like that. So even though the pop-up is displayed, there is no shortcut. But considering the accessibility, not only for specific people, also people like me can enjoy the benefit. So that's something, my personal experience. So I started to be interested in accessibility, and I get older, and something I developed cannot be available for the people, for elder people, and that is not good. So that's another reason I am interested in accessibility. And in my case, so throughout my activity in this field, I think I developed a sense of the ownership, and also I witnessed the impairment people using the service, using the PC, and then using the screen reader, and they watch the website. But there are areas that they cannot read because it is not fully supported, and even though it is readable, but it's not perfect. So the service, so the organization which want to offer deliver the service, but because of the lack of the accessibility, the service is not fully delivered to the end user. And after my child was born, and I put him in a stroller and walking outside. And so this is not relevant to the website, but when I went to the station, the nearest station, there is a bookstore at the top of higher floor of the building. And then to access to that, the bookstore, there was no elevator, and I had to actually use the escalator. And so I realized that there is the escalator is the only way to get to the bookstore. When I have to have a stroller, and I was upset. So I felt like I am not allowed to go to the bookstore when I am pushing the stroller. Then from there, I started to think about, So I think I am giving many things to the user without considering their situation. So I thought that that was kind of a opportunity for me to realize the accessibility. Thank you. So everyone has a different kind of motivation, but I would like to switch the gear to move on to the next agenda item. So what motivates you to continue improving accessibility? So everyone in your work, what's your motivation to keep improving accessibility? So in my case, so I witnessed the situation that handicapped people using the service. So that's the opportunity for me to think this issue as with a sense of the ownership. And also personally, accessibility has the implementation issue and also the UI issue. And also, so to the image, so the alternative text, so equivalent text is offered, but how to procure the alternative text, that has to be considered. And also the video is provided by the contents partner, and how the subtitles should be prepared. So there are many things that we can do and we have to do. And so I am doing a lot of accessibility activities, but still there are many things that I have to learn and I don't know. So I think I can keep learning and studying. That's the one motivation for me to continue this activity. So I am working as a markup engineer for a long time, and when I write the CSS, on a certain browser, the display is corrupted, and fixing that is kind of fun. So when I identify something wrong and I want to fix it, I think that's the same for you. And regardless the number of the access, as once you find something wrong and you want to fix it, and that kind of sense is actually extended. So the screen reader is not working perfectly, and I don't want to leave it as it is. I want to fix it. So I think it's completely my characteristics. So that's how I keep my motivation. And also, the markup information should be organized well. In other words, the information is not delivered properly. And so the chaos information should be tidy up and organized. And doing that is really makes me feel happy. So that's kind of another element I keep working on this field. So similar to the motivation I mentioned before, so something I developed cannot be used by myself when I get older. So I want to develop something that can be used for a long time, and also by many many people of the wider generation. And also improving my knowledge is another element. So having the correct knowledge, it will improve the accessibility. And what is implemented with the JavaScript properly, and it can be read out by the screen reader. So also by fulfilling those elements, I can improve my self-complacent. So learning and acquiring knowledge, how do you do that? In my case, I read books, and also I join a study session and listen other people's activity and experience, and I check the website. So there is no one single specific approach. I do different kind of things, and also if there is an influencer, I follow that person. So in that way, I accumulate the knowledge. And in my case, basically, I check the website. And recently, I accessed the English website and used the machine translation. So web accessibility is something including implementation and also the response to the legal requirement. In case of US, so the country which has the stronger legal requirement, disseminate the accessibility. So I check the information of such countries. And also I read the specification more. So in the specification and the planning, the more concrete information is written. Rather than looking for another document, it is better to check the specification thoroughly. So that's something how I get the knowledge.
What about the Shiraishi-san? I think I'm at an entry of accessibility, so I read document of NDL and HTML standard. I understand that this is the correct HTML, and this is the type of the sentences I can convey well with this type, and also JavaScript widget. What is the implementation I should do? So those are the things I'm learning gradually, and also I often net surf to see overseas sites and also local government's website. How it is implemented is what I see. I may operate it on my own, or I read books, and I see how they are utilized. And so this is how titles should be written in this way. That is what I learned through net surfing. And for also, this is the type of implementation I'd like to ask. And I'm gaining more knowledge by asking questions. As an individual, when you want to tackle accessibility, do you see website or literature? Is that a royal road? Yes. And also, for the past several years, Slack access page is where we see accessibility activities shown in Japan. When I ask questions, I can get answers at a high probability. I see. Yes, I have asked the questions to that several times. What questions do you ask? I'm wondering if this method is correct or not. That is what I ask questions. I'm asking if this is the right way. Do you get the answer? Yes, I get an answer from knowledgeable people. It's not a risky area. They always answer sincerely. They wouldn't ignore. Now, let's move on to next title. This may need more volume. How to involve others in accessibility activities in doing your job to advocate accessibility. Then, line, how do you involve other people? At the beginning of the activity, UIT team I belong to, I conducted a study session, and I involved some members in my department. And even if I start a study session, I didn't expand the size. There weren't other members involved. How many people were there? There were about 4 or 5 people at the beginning. And when we finished reading the specifications, we were not sure what to do next. But task force was established as an organization and as a project. And other than front-end people, such as designers and planners, were also involved. And we should do this so that we can tackle accessibility by involving those people. How do you do that? Necessity is what I have to communicate to them, because there are many cases where they don't know this is an issue and we have to solve this issue. And if we leave it as it is, there is a possibility that we may encounter a certain problem. And I put together a document, and I ask them to give me half an hour or 1 hour for study session. What was the response by them? The response by them is good. They say they agree, we need it. But there is no negative answer. They say, let's do it, in many cases. I see. Demae-can, what do you think? As I said at the beginning, replacement is what is doing now. A little before I started, and there was an opportunity for refresh, which was easier for me to do in this environment. And pluric debut culture is available at the debut. This markup is invalid, is what I mentioned. Correct HTML, elements, old entry. Those are the things we reviewed. And it convinced other engineers, and they accepted it. And they think that we have to tackle accessibility, but they were not sure how to do it. And I kind of appealed that I have knowledge about that, so that we can develop a code with a higher quality. That is what I have done. I see. In your development, there is agreement to some extent, but for review, it may take some time. So if a man-hour may be increased, how do you explain to your organization? Yes, once we have created a track record, it will be easier for them to understand that man-hour. And also if a vision is established, and we have to do a good job for accessibility, which was agreed upon, and then we can promote that. So even if it is included in man-hour, it's okay. Once you implement, engineers can estimate what they have to do. And it's difficult to give you what is the correct answer for accessibility, but implementation based on sampling is what engineers can do, and we can calculate man-hour and implementation. What was the first agreement? The members were in agreement that we have to work on accessibility, so it went smoothly. I see. So everybody had an agreement, yes. It may be a negotiation to engineers. If I say invalid code wouldn't work, then they agree. That is an area where we gradually expanded the motivation for accessibility activities. And also, there was a person seconded from Line GT who also improved accessibility. So I think there were good members. So we are reviewing accessibility with multiple people. I see. What about Yahoo, Japan? Yes. In the case of Yahoo, Japan, for the current method, we create a guideline and we ask them to comply with the guideline. And as for UI guideline, which is available, and accessibility is inserted. And we ask them to comply with it. And the implementation, although I'm not knowledgeable about design, but for UI and also various services, they observe the guideline. And we ask them to observe guidelines, but there are some other things that are not mandatory. we have to make a judgment on each service. So access manager needs to make a judgment, but there is a guideline with which we can comply or not. So there is a visibility. How do you come up with visibility? There is an external research company who is working with us once or twice a year. They are conducting a survey to see UX and usability, accessibility. And as for accessibility, in line with the guideline, they check how we do to identify what is done, what is not. So we are doing that for the past 2 to 3 years. I see. So there is a wide variety of services. Can you do that if you order? Not everything, but PB, certain PB with more users, which is the one what we do. And depending on each service, we make a judgment. And also engineers would like to tackle accessibility and they don't know what to do, even if they are willing to do so. And we have a discussion with engineers and we may have a study session.
And also we offer a lecture and let them try to do that. So that kind of activities are also taking place. So not everyone is highly aware of the accessibility, but that is not the case. So the level of the awareness might be different depending on the people. And so by doing the accessibility, the revenue goes up, or profitability will go up. There is no direct relationship. So some people may not understand the importance of the accessibility. How do you convince such people? Is there any good example to convince the negative people? So that's a difficult question, but basically, so there are users, and then such users are having a problem. So that has to be conveyed clearly. So let them understand there are a group of people who cannot use a service. And then people don't say that we will ignore them. So I think that is more convincing. But also it is difficult to share the concrete case. And also there is a guideline, and we fail to comply to that. So that kind of explanation I give. Also, you said that you conducted a user interview, and did you use that? And the result of the user interview, well, we learn a lot, like many people are using dark mode. So the dark mode also has to be considered. So that is also conveyed to the people when I explain that. Yes. So in my case, the user test, the user interview is very effective. That happens a lot. So there is an in-house tool. And then when accessibility should be improved of that tool, so the people who use the screen user test that tool, and then the result is reviewed by the developer, then the improvement is made. And at that time, it is impossible to operate with the screen reader, and because of the low vision, there is a case that entering is difficult. So such situation was not understood at all by the developers, but through such activities that was clarified, so it was good. So this is very unique to the Demae-can, but also we, the company, to disseminate the message to the many people, wider a group of people. So we want to deliver our vision more people. So it is pretty straightforward people to understand the importance of the accessibility. So not only the specific people, under the certain situation or context, it is difficult to use. Then, so not only the handicapped people, but also the normal people, depending on the situation, it is there is a case that using the service is difficult. So that kind of explanation is also made. So what is the struggling or pain point of doing the accessibility activities? So we we organized a study session and invite many people, and people participate. But those people have a certain level of the interest, but there are people who don't care at all. And how to approach such people is one pain point that I am struggling. Yes, so it's not a pain point or the struggling, but accessibility or the improvement of the accessibility, there is a law, but that law is not strict enough. So we cannot involve everyone to drive the accessibility activity because the requirement of the law is not so strong enough. And there is a law to clarify, to clear the difficulties of the handicapped people, but that is not strong enough. So if there is a strong element which force everyone to join this activity, that would be great. So myself, I just started to working on accessibility improvement recently. So the people with low vision or people who have difficulty to use the website, with such people, I have not conducted with the user interviews. So how to approach such people? Then, so according to the theory, we made an improvement, but is it really improved or not? I didn't have any opportunity to confirm that, so I wanted to do something like that. So time is running out. So we covered different items today. Then I would like to ask, what's your next action? What is your future activities? So continuously, I want to realize that Demae-can, anyone can place an order from our website. And also, I have not conducted a user interview, so I want to do that. Then, so I want to verify what we have made is really usable by many people. And this time, by joining this session, and Yahoo Japan has done a different kind of the activities, but so I realized that there are things that we have not done properly in terms of the implementation. So the engineers should be interested in this theme, then become more active. If we can do something for that, that would be good. So information output, I want to emphasize that. I want to enhance that. So we have a study session internally, but we want to expand that by inviting the handicapped people. Then I want to involve more people as much as possible. So we would like to have this kind of a panel discussion continuously, and also we want to have a continuous communication and we would like to improve the accessibility further together. So now it's time, so we would like to conclude the session. So things we do and things we have not done, we discussed. So if you have any, so I hope that this discussion inspires you, the audience. Thank you very much.